The Antikythera mechanism, an ancient marvel. In 65 BC, a Roman merchant ship, while traversing the Aegean Sea between Crete and mainland Greece, met with disaster and sank to the seabed, taking with it its entire treasure trove of cargo. Among them were wine amphorae, exquisite bronze statues, sparkling glassware, precious jewelry, and one peculiar item, a corroded bronze block, about the size of a hardcover book, concealing countless tiny gears crafted with extraordinary precision. A level of engineering that the world would not replicate for another 14 centuries. As the ship sank deep, it carried its secrets with it, lying dormant on the seabed near Antikythera Island for 2 millennia. It wasn't until 1901 that Greek sponge divers, exploring the shipwreck, began to salvage heavily corroded bronze fragments. At the time, no one could identify the true nature of what they were witnessing. The mysterious object was subsequently catalogued, carefully numbered, and placed on a display shelf in Athens. And there it remained, undisturbed, for over half a century. It wasn't until 1951 that historian Derek de Sola Price decided to conduct a more meticulous examination. His findings completely revolutionized all previous assumptions. Hidden deep within its corroded casing were at least 37 intricate interlocking bronze gears, not for decoration but fully functional. A differential gear system, a sophisticated pin and slot planetary mechanism, along with inscriptions in Koine Greek on the internal plates, forming a detailed manual on the use of each dial. This was the Antikythera mechanism, an undeniable testament to the most advanced technological sophistication ever unearthed from the ancient world. The device was of modest size, 34 centimeters high, 18 centimeters wide, and 9 centimeters deep. Simply by turning a crank, the front face of the device would instantly display the precise positions of the sun and moon within the zodiac. On the back, 2 spiral dials were arranged. One of them was used to track the 19-year Metonic calendar cycle. The harmonious synchronization between the solar and lunar cycles allowed users to accurately predict the timing of solar and lunar eclipses. The other dial functioned as a countdown to the quadrennial Olympic Games cycle. Additionally, another subsidiary dial tracked the Saros cycle, an 18-year and 11-day system for predicting solar and lunar eclipses, with astonishing accuracy within just 1 or 2 hours. By 2006, the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project had utilized high-resolution X-ray tomography to decipher all the hidden texts within, thereby confirming that the device was also capable of tracking the movements of all 5 planets known in antiquity. A groundbreaking discovery from the 2021 reconstruction by the University College London team revealed an astonishing fact. The original machine's front face alone incorporated up to 30 auxiliary components, creating a unified and comprehensive model of the known cosmos. The incredible sophistication of the Saros dial became a major challenge, prompting engineers to continuously ponder and investigate. Accurately predicting eclipse sequences required a profound understanding of the moon's anomalous orbital motion. It accelerates when near Earth and decelerates as it moves away. Today we call this an elliptical orbit, a cosmic principle that Johannes Kepler officially published in 1609. Astonishingly, the Antikythera mechanism mechanically reproduced this anomaly with exquisite sophistication. Through a unique pin and slot gear system, it adjusted the moon's display speed, accurately simulating the celestial body's actual motion by physically accelerating and decelerating it. Remarkably, this type of gearing is believed to have been reinvented by the Flemish engineer Simon Steven around 1600, nearly 2 millennia later. The Antikythera mechanism, currently on display at the National Archaeological Museum of Athens, is dated to approximately 100 BC. Isotopic analysis of the bronze alloy, published in the journal Almagest in 2017, provided solid evidence regarding the machine's metallic composition. Data indicates that this material almost certainly originated from the Corinthian region, a conclusion perfectly consistent with its estimated manufacturing date between 150 and 60 BC. It is at this point that an orthodox explanation emerged, and it makes perfect sense. The intellect and ingenuity of ancient Greek engineers were, indeed, extraordinary. Hero of Alexandria created programmable mechanical theaters, a testament to remarkable advancement. Archimedes designed siege engines of terrifying power, striking fear into Roman commanders. The scholar Cicero, in his writings around 60 BC, recounted a device built by Archimedes that could vividly reproduce the movements of the sun, moon, and 5 planets. Therefore, the Antikythera mechanism was not a product of supernatural magic. Instead, it was a masterpiece created by brilliant minds who had reached the pinnacle of Hellenistic mechanical tradition, built upon centuries of accumulated astronomical observation. However, a perplexing problem has emerged, challenging that seemingly perfect explanation. Every great technological civilization leaves clear traces of its evolution, from early prototypes and failed experiments to scrap heaps piled high in workshops. Yet, the path leading to the Antikythera mechanism's creation is entirely blank, devoid of any precursor. This machine appeared perfectly formed, with no discernible ancestors. After it sank into oblivion, the technological tradition it represented vanished completely, so much so that it took another 14 centuries for Europe to produce anything of comparable mechanical complexity in the form of the first astronomical clocks on medieval church towers. A ship, a magnificent machine, yet with no successors. Many scholars have wondered about the origin of this device's manufacture, questioning whether it came from a renowned center of knowledge, such as the vast library system of Ptolemaic Alexandria, or from the prestigious astronomical school in Rhodes. In an era where countless sophisticated mathematical and mechanical insights might never have been preserved on papyrus or were burned to ashes, if a merchant ship happened to carry one of these mechanical marvels, then the question arises, how many similar devices once existed, and what happened to the brilliant civilization of the artisans who created them? Perhaps we will never find the answer. However, one undeniable truth is this. From the deep Aegean seabed, a severely corroded bronze mass was recovered. Yet within it lay gears so intricate that it took modern civilization 14 centuries to replicate them. Whatever civilization or tradition gave birth to this masterpiece, it seems to have forever sunk deep with that fated ship. Leaving behind the ancient machine used to observe the cosmos, our journey now takes you to the majestic Andes of Bolivia, specifically a plateau situated at an altitude of nearly 13,000 feet above sea level. Here, another equally incredible mystery was left behind by someone. This is a structure so immense that it could never fit into any museum display case, for even its smallest fragments weigh more than a modern cargo truck. Upon arriving at Pumapunku, the first sensation that strikes you is an extraordinary stillness. Bolivia's Altiplano Plateau stretches endlessly in every direction, bringing with it a biting cold, a vast and overwhelmingly expansive flatland. And right before your eyes, scattered across the ground as if hurled down by an enraged deity, are magnificent ruins. Colossal stone blocks, shaped like the number 8. Each block appears to be an astonishingly perfect replica of the next. Sharp, precise angles that could cause injury if touched, and surfaces so smoothly polished that they reflect the faint Andean light like a mirror. Even more astonishingly, through the heart of some of these blocks, internal channels are drilled with absolute precision, a technique any modern machinist would instantly recognize, yet then struggle to explain. And this is Pumapunku. This structure is an inseparable part of the larger Tiwanaku archaeological complex, whose age has been scientifically determined through radiocarbon analysis, estimated to be between 536 and 600 AD. Its location is at an astonishing altitude, 3,074 meters above sea level. Even more astonishing is that this structure was created by a culture which, according to records, possessed no writing system, no iron tools, and not even the wheel. These are the facts that mainstream history always demands we engrave in our minds, while we are gazing upon a structure that was clearly built without any of those elements. The 8-shaped andesite blocks are the focal point, the heart of all mysteries here. Dozens of similar blocks have been found, and astonishingly, they are geometrically identical, as if cast from a single mold. Imagine an incredible precision, only about 2 millimeters across all existing artifacts. This 2-millimeter figure is not the tolerance of a modern machine part, but of a stone block handcrafted thousands of years ago. Andesite itself, the primary material used, possesses a significant hardness of 6 to 7 on the Mohs scale. Meanwhile, bronze, the hardest metal the Tiwanaku civilization ever possessed, only reaches a hardness of 3. Physically, carving a harder material with a softer tool, especially with sub-millimeter precision, is utterly inconceivable. This is entirely impossible. Fundamental physical principles do not allow for such a feat to exist. In this area, the greatest monolithic block, dubbed Platforma Litica, is overwhelming in its size, reaching a length of 7.81 meters, a width of 5.17 meters, and a thickness of just over 1 meter, with an estimated colossal weight of 131 tons. This colossal block was moved from a quarry approximately 10 kilometers from its current location. Even more astonishingly, the red sandstone blocks here were quarried from a site 90 kilometers away, on the other side of Lake Titicaca, requiring transport by water using reed boats, which are believed to be capable of carrying multi-ton cargo. The miracle is that every single block arrived. Every single block was placed correctly, with none missing or damaged. This raises questions about a unique type of tool, capable of creating the intricate marks we observe on the surfaces of these stone blocks. The experimental archaeological evidence here is highly authentic and reliable. In 1985, Jean-Pierre Protzen from the University of California, Berkeley, published an in-depth study in the Journal of the Society of Architectural Historians. This study focused on analyzing Inca stoneworking techniques within the context of Andean traditions. With a hands-on approach, he personally experimented with recreating stone structures, using only tools believed to be available during that period. As a result, he achieved certain successes on flat surfaces through persistent stone-on-stone hammering. Just imagine, even the most brilliant engineering minds cannot replicate the characteristic three-dimensional polygonal interlocking geometry, which is the hallmark of these incredibly sophisticated stone blocks. Imagine repeatedly lowering a colossal 131-ton stone block, checking its perfect fit with 6 uneven adjacent faces, making subtle adjustments, and then lifting it again. This is simply not an iterative process that any human workforce could effectively manage or execute. Clearly, this was a complex engineering calculation, executed with absolute precision even before the stone block was moved. Furthermore, another equally fascinating mystery is the presence of metal clamps. Specifically at Pumapunku, many stone blocks are tightly joined by eye-shaped metal connectors, which were molten poured directly into exquisitely cut T-shaped grooves on the stone surface. Astonishingly, this technique, not just similar, but strikingly identical, has also been found at Sacsayhuaman in Peru and at numerous other ancient sites stretching from Egypt to Lebanon. These connectors were not brought to the site pre-formed. Instead, metal was melted and poured directly into pre-cut grooves on site. This implies that a civilization had to transport mobile metal smelting equipment to a remote plateau. At an altitude of nearly 13,000 feet, almost 4,000 meters above sea level, they operated this equipment to pour the connectors with absolute precision into the stone grooves, a truly remarkable feat. Although no smelting facilities have been discovered at Pumapunku, the prevailing hypothesis still asserts that the Tiwanaku culture was an extremely sophisticated Andean state. This civilization is believed to have possessed a highly organized workforce, including master stonemasons with exceptional skills. These artisans are believed to have accumulated a wealth of knowledge and sophisticated craftsmanship over centuries. Religious motives are seen as a key factor, helping to mobilize a massive workforce to create colossal and magnificent architectural structures. According to the popular argument, with an abundant number of skilled workers, sufficient time, and techniques accumulated over generations, great architectural achievements like Pumapunku could certainly have been accomplished. In reality, this polygonal interlocking style, far from being as mysterious as many mistakenly believe, is an exceptionally brilliant and sophisticated construction technique. This mechanism allows for the effective distribution of seismic stresses across uneven surfaces, instead of concentrating them at conventional joints, thereby significantly enhancing the structure's stability. It is precisely because of these superior advantages that ancient Andean builders chose to adopt that technique as an optimal solution. However, a crucial point that cannot be overlooked is that even centuries of accumulated craftsmanship cannot explain the complete absence of tool marks on the stone blocks. Every stoneworking tradition throughout human history, from ancient Egyptian, Greek, and Roman civilizations to medieval Europe, left clear and characteristic identifiable tool marks. Sharp chisel marks, finely polished surfaces, and characteristic patterns from impact are common signs usually seen on ancient stone structures. Yet the andesite surfaces at Pumapunku are astonishingly clean, with almost no tool marks whatsoever, a completely anomalous situation. Notably, to date, no experimental research group has succeeded in replicating a single H-block, using period-accurate methods and achieving full scale. In fact, some scholars, notably French material scientist Joseph Davidovits, have put forth a bold hypothesis. These stone blocks were not carved in the traditional way. Instead, their argument revolves around the idea that the stone blocks were formed through a casting process, by pouring a type of reconstituted stone mortar into wooden molds. This hypothesis provides a plausible explanation for the astonishing geometric precision of the blocks. At the same time, it also sheds light on the complete absence of tool marks on their surfaces. If the builders of the Tiwanaku civilization truly possess the secret of chemically reconstituting andesite stone, then this would indeed be a remarkable achievement in the field of material science, a level that the modern world has not yet been able to achieve on its own. Not until the 20th century, we still cannot confirm whether that hypothesis is historical truth or not. However, one undeniable fact is that what we are witnessing at Pumapunku is completely inconsistent with the construction methods we currently understand. Now, moving away from the majestic Bolivian Andes Plateau, we will explore the heart of the Roman Empire, not to marvel at its invincible legions or magnificent road networks, but to learn about a unique glass cup currently carefully preserved at the British Museum, which holds a captivating secret. A secret that Roman civilization seemed to have once uncovered, but then completely lost to oblivion. This is the renowned Lycurgus cup. When you hold the Lycurgus cup in a dimly lit space, it reveals an astonishing secret. The sight before you will leave you utterly amazed, making you double-check what you're seeing. A cup of emerald green, translucent like jade, intricately carved with the image of King Lycurgus of Thrace, entangled in vines, immersed in a scene of divine punishment. Simply place a light source behind it, and the cup undergoes a spectacular transformation. The jade green vanishes, giving way to a blood-red hue, a deep Bordeaux red, radiating a brilliant light from within, as if a living creature were imprisoned within its silica structure. This is no mere display trick, nor is it a recently added surface coating. The ancient Romans skillfully integrated this color-changing ability directly into the cup's material structure, using particles up to 50 times smaller than a human red blood cell. What's even more astonishing is that the physical principle behind this phenomenon was not fully discovered and explained by scientists until 1908. Let's explore a captivating ancient masterpiece. This cup has been dated by archaeologists to the 4th century AD. However, the early chapters of its history remain shrouded in mystery, with no records whatsoever. It wasn't until the 19th century that this unique artifact reappeared, becoming a prized part of the renowned Rothschild family collection. In 1958, the British Museum officially acquired this masterpiece, adding it to its valuable trove of artifacts. For decades, the cup's miraculous color-changing ability had been observed and documented, but its underlying cause remained an unanswered question. Then, in that fateful year of 1990, a team of talented scientists from the British Museum, including Ian Freestone, Nigel Meeks, Margaret Sachs, and Catherine Higgett, conducted an analysis of a tiny glass fragment under an advanced electron microscope. And what they discovered truly defied all expectations, a presence inexplicable by conventional means. They found minuscule nanoparticles of a gold-silver alloy, uniformly and intricately distributed throughout the glass structure. Remarkably, with an average diameter of just 50 nanometers, the composition of this alloy was no accident. Specifically, it comprised approximately 70% silver and 30% gold, a formulation clearly intentional and meticulously calculated. To put it into perspective, 50 nanometers is just 1/50th the width of a human hair, demonstrating an astonishing level of sophistication. Remarkably, these particles do not clump or aggregate. Instead, they are distributed with absolute uniformity, creating a consistent and beautiful optical effect throughout the entire cup. At this incredibly tiny scale, these metal particles interact with incident light through a special quantum electromagnetic effect known as surface plasmon resonance. At the core of this phenomenon, electrons within the nanoparticles oscillate at specific frequencies, leading to the absorption and scattering of different light wavelengths. This transformation depends on whether the light strikes the glass material from the front or the back. This very mechanism creates the unique color-changing effect, shifting from a vibrant green hue to a warm red tone. Gustav Mie's work provided a precise mathematical description for this particular light scattering phenomenon. Although this theory was only described by Gustav Mie in 1908, the Romans crafted this cup as early as 300 AD, demonstrating a level of technology far ahead of its time. The implications of this discovery become much more profound when we consider the potential applications that the cup's operating principle could offer. In 2013, groundbreaking research from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign revealed that the Lycurgus cup's geometric nanoparticle array structure possesses superior sensitivity, capable of detecting subtle changes in the refractive index of the surrounding solution. Astonishingly, the fundamental structure of the Lycurgus cup, a system of nanoparticles suspended in glass capable of optically reacting to its surroundings, is precisely the functional prototype for today's advanced optical biosensors, used to detect pathogens in liquid samples. An ancient Roman wine cup is not only a masterpiece of art, but also inadvertently gave birth to the structural principle for a 21st century medical diagnostic technology. The cup itself features a unique cage-like structure, an outer decorative network with carvings attached to the inner vessel by just 3 delicate glass bridges. This is part of the Roman cage cup tradition, known as diatretas, which was considered the pinnacle of technical skill in ancient glassmaking. However, this intricate crafting technique completely vanished after the fall of the Roman Empire. The only confirmed evidence of its existence is another ancient glass object with dichroic nanoparticle properties, a fragment excavated from a Roman site at Wint Hill, Somerset, England. This discovery suggests that at least 2 Roman workshops had mastered this unique technique. Notably, no Roman texts mention these production workshops. No glassmaker's manual describes the process in detail, nor are there any guild records documenting the manufacturing formula. This has led to a widely accepted explanation. The cup itself stands out with its intricate cage-like structure, an outer decorative network, with carvings affixed to the inner vessel by just 3 delicate glass bridges. This is part of the Roman cage cup tradition, also known as diatretas, considered the pinnacle of ancient glassmaking art, but which unfortunately completely disappeared after the fall of the Roman Empire. Aside from the Lycurgus cup, only one other ancient glass object has been confirmed to possess dichroic nanoparticle properties, a fragment discovered at a Roman site in Wint Hill, Somerset, England. This suggests that at least 2 Roman workshops once held the secret to this technology. Surprisingly, there are no Roman documents whatsoever recording these production workshops. Not a single glassmaker's manual describes the crafting process in detail, and no records from professional guilds list the secret formula. This has led to a widely accepted hypothesis. According to this hypothesis, Roman glassmakers were brilliant experimentalists. They accidentally discovered the dichroic effect by adding metal filings or colloidal solutions to molten glass. Over generations, they persistently observed the results and continuously refined the process through trial and error, even if they couldn't explain the scientific basis behind it. These intricate achievements did not require a conscious theory of nanotechnology, but merely the patient repetition of a craftsman's hands, accumulated over decades of relentless experimentation in workshops. However, there's a crucial point that the above hypothesis cannot adequately explain: how to produce nanoparticles with a uniform diameter of 50 nanometers, evenly dispersed in molten glass without clumping into larger masses that would ruin the optical effect, and especially with precisely controlled alloy ratios. This clearly isn't a mere coincidence during experimentation that any craftsman could have stumbled upon by chance. Scientists at modern nanomaterials research institutes have demonstrated that the precise temperature range and chemical conditions required to disperse nanoparticles in this manner are extremely limited. Random experimentation can only lead to random results. However, the Lycurgus cup was not a product of chance. It was the result of a tightly controlled process. This demonstrates that someone had a functional mastery of how this process worked, even if they couldn't name or explain the underlying physical principles. Some material science historians have put forward a fascinating hypothesis. This sophisticated chain of knowledge may have originated in Hellenistic Alexandria. There, alchemical traditions detailed the reduction of metallic salts into fine particulate suspensions, specifically colloidal gold preparations. This was considered a practical craft technology, not a purely theoretical exercise. If this tradition of knowledge truly existed and was transmitted to Roman workshops, thanks to Alexandria's intellectual and cultural channels, the Lycurgus cup appears to be the sole surviving physical testament. As Alexandria burned and its scholars dispersed, these precious secrets seemingly vanished into oblivion. Moving away from Rome's advanced glassmaking techniques, we now turn our gaze eastward, to a nation where a metallurgical marvel still stands defiantly amidst the harsh environmental conditions of Delhi, where it has steadfastly resisted the laws of natural erosion for 16 centuries. The Iron Pillar of Delhi. Upon first viewing, it isn't particularly imposing. It doesn't boast colossal dimensions, nor does it conceal hidden chambers. No mysterious inscriptions requiring deciphering by secret organizations. It is simply a somber-colored iron pillar, standing 7 meters tall in the inner courtyard of the Qutb complex in Mehroli, on the southern outskirts of Delhi, surrounded by medieval Islamic structures, which themselves were built from the ruins of even older temples. This pillar predates everything around it by about a millennium. A Sanskrit inscription near its base identifies it as a memorial to a king named Chandra, whom historians have attributed to the Gupta dynasty. Chandragupta II, the monarch who ruled from approximately 375 and extended until 415 AD. This towering pillar was erected to honor his glorious victories across the Bactrian frontier. However, that is not the truly astonishing part. What truly amazes us is that this pillar is made entirely of solid iron. It has stood defiantly in northern India, enduring the harsh humidity of the monsoons and the scorching summer heat. For 16 centuries, it has faced cycles of dampness and alternating dry periods, a process that would naturally destroy iron. Yet, after 16 centuries, this pillar shows almost no rust. There is a thin, dark layer of rust on the surface, but absolutely no structural corrosion, no flaking or pitting. Essentially, the iron beneath the surface remains perfectly intact. It wasn't until 2002 that modern metallurgical science found an answer to this mystery. That's when R. Balasubramanian, from the Indian Institute of Technology Kanpur, published a groundbreaking analysis in the journal Current Science. What Balasubramanian discovered and confirmed through X-ray diffraction was that the pillar's surface had naturally formed a unique protective layer. This layer is a compound called misawite, a crystalline iron hydrogen phosphate, with a thickness of only about 1/20th of a millimeter. This protective layer forms naturally during the wet and dry cycles characteristic of the Indian climate. What's astonishing is that this layer can self-repair when damaged, and it indefinitely prevents further oxidation. Meanwhile, the Western iron and steel industry didn't develop effective corrosion-resistant iron alloys until the early 20th century. Clearly, Gupta-era metallurgists achieved a comparable feat, but 15 centuries earlier. The key factor is the composition of this iron. Detailed analysis has shown that the pillar contains about 98% pure wrought iron, with a phosphorus content ranging from 0.1 to 0.25%. This level is truly extraordinary, far surpassing any other ancient iron forging technique in the world. It was this specific range of phosphorus concentration that created the ideal conditions for misawite to form. The material's almost complete lack of slag impurities is clear evidence that the Gupta people's smelting and forge welding processes achieved exceptional purity, rarely seen in techniques of the same era. In contrast, Roman or Chinese iron products typically contained 5 to 10% slag impurities. The manufacturing method itself was an astonishing feat when we consider it closely. The pillar is not a single cast block. Instead, it was created through complex forge welding techniques. It's estimated that approximately 120,000 individual pieces of iron were simultaneously heated to around 1100 degrees Celsius, then forged to bond them tightly together. Subsequently, the metal block was meticulously shaped and polished to achieve its final finished appearance. Heating a multi-ton iron block uniformly to the temperature required for forge welding demands a specialized system of furnaces and bellows. This system would need to maintain continuous and uniform high-temperature heating across the entire cross-section of the object. However, to date, no forging sites of comparable scale from the Gupta period have been clearly identified. The most common explanation attributes this success to the rich, accumulated empirical experience of Indian metallurgists over many generations. They established a tradition of iron forging, considered the most advanced in the world, continuously developing over centuries. They were the ones who created the legendary Wootz steel, a material medieval traders transported across continents, lauded as the sharpest blade-making material. This fact was widely recognized in the ancient world. From this perspective, the Delhi pillar is nothing less than the ultimate symbol, the most brilliant achievement of that iron forging tradition. Artisans who worked with phosphorus-rich iron ore, a prominent feature of the Indian subcontinent, accumulated valuable knowledge through practical experience. They discovered the optimal smelting conditions to produce the most durable products. However, this traditional explanation faces a significant obstacle. The Gupta period is known as one of the most brilliant eras in Indian history, marked by high levels of scholarship and extraordinary intellectual productivity. It was the mathematical geniuses of the Gupta dynasty who originated and gifted humanity the groundbreaking concept of zero. At the same time, brilliant astronomers pioneered the development of heliocentric models of the universe. The ancient treatise Arthashastra, originating from the Maurya period, meticulously documented complex and sophisticated metallurgical processes. Yet strangely, no Gupta text, no technical manual, nor any court record revealed the secret to crafting an iron pillar capable of resisting rust through the ages. That unique secret, whatever it may have been, was passed down entirely through oral tradition. And then, when those master craftsmen passed away, that invaluable formula was forever lost to oblivion with them. This leads some researchers to question, did the Gupta metallurgists truly inherit and develop their skills from a much older knowledge base? A legacy of knowledge stretching back to the Maurya Empire, forming an ironworking tradition whose deep origins remain a completely unsolved mystery. Balasubramanian himself asserted that understanding the formation mechanism of misawite has the potential to revolutionize today's advanced anti-corrosion coating technology. In other words, an empirical discovery from 4th century India is directly shaping and guiding 21st century materials science. We seem to have received answers from those who stumbled upon them, without ever knowing the real question. Moving away from India's enduring iron pillars, our journey of discovery now takes us to a mysterious hill in southeastern Turkey. This is an ancient site, constructed with astonishing precision, so much so that when researchers finally deciphered the rock carvings, they concluded that the builders were not documenting mythology. Instead, they were recording a major astronomical event, a fateful day signaling the end of a world that existed before our own. It was the encoded trace of a comet at Göbekli Tepe, dating back 12,000 years, long before the first city appeared, before rudimentary writing systems, and even before the invention of the wheel. Some force mobilized enough manpower to quarry colossal limestone blocks, each weighing up to 10 tons. They then transported them over a rugged hill in southeastern Anatolia and arranged them into concentric circles with absolute precision. The entire structure was firmly anchored by pairs of T-shaped stone pillars, each standing majestically 6 meters tall. According to the orthodox timeline of human prehistory, Such a construction at that time would have been utterly impossible. All of this took place around 10,000 BCE. Imagine a time when humans were merely scattered communities of hunter-gatherers. When agriculture had not yet emerged, the concept of surplus production was entirely absent. A state apparatus capable of coordinating and mobilizing large-scale labor was completely non-existent. Nevertheless, a magnificent structure named Göbekli Tepe defied all limits to exist. This site is located on a hillside, approximately 15 kilometers northeast of modern-day Şanlıurfa, Turkey. Based on radiocarbon analysis, the age of this structure is determined to be at least 9,600 BCE. To put it into perspective, this construction predates Stonehenge by 6 millennia, and it predates the famous Giza pyramids by over 7,000 years. The site was discovered during a field survey in 1963. However, it was overlooked, mistaken for a medieval cemetery. It was the German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt recognized its true significance in 1994. He diligently excavated this site until his death in 2014. What he discovered deep beneath the earth turned out to be a structure that had been intentionally buried. All completed structures were deliberately backfilled with tons of limestone rubble. As a result, the structures were remarkably preserved. And from this, a perplexing question arose, for which no one has yet offered a convincing explanation. Why did the builders decide to bury their own temple? A massive, unfinished pillar remains intact in its original quarry. It is located just 100 meters from the central area. This reveals a significant aspect of ancient construction techniques. With an impressive length of approximately 7 meters, it was carved directly from the bedrock on site. It was intended to be meticulously carved and detached from the bedrock. Once completed, its estimated weight would have been up to 50 tons. However, there are no traces of ropes or sled systems capable of moving this colossal stone closer to the site. There is a complete absence of residential levels, cooking areas, storage pits, or resting spaces. The absence of these signs within this architectural complex suggests that Göbekli Tepe was not a residential settlement. Instead, it was a pilgrimage site where people gathered to build, and then, at a mysterious point in time, completely buried the structures before departing. In 2017, two researchers, Martin Sweatman and Dimitrios Sakritsis from the University of Edinburgh, published a peer-reviewed scientific paper. This work, appearing in the Journal of Archaeology and Mediterranean Archaeology, proposed a groundbreaking hypothesis that completely altered the perception of the entire site. They convincingly argued that the animal carvings on Pillar 43, the most elaborate pillar at the site, were not merely decorative. Instead, they were an ancient astronomical map. Each depicted animal corresponded to a specific constellation, following a zoomorphic naming system documented in many other ancient astronomical civilizations. For example, the vulture represented the constellation Sagittarius, while the scorpion symbolized Scorpio. By comparing the structure of the animal carvings with ancient night sky maps, these astronomical positions encoded a specific date. That encoded date falls around 10,950 BC. This is particularly significant because a large-scale, multi-institutional study published in the Journal of Geology in 2018 precisely identified a major geological event occurring at that exact time. A shocking discovery was announced. 24 scientists from 12 countries, after surveying sites across 4 continents, identified a geological layer containing consistent evidence of cosmic impact. These indicators, including nanodiamonds, platinum group elements, shock-deformed quartz, and microspherules, are undeniable proof of a continent-spanning cosmic impact event. This is precisely the event that marks the Younger Dryas boundary. The hypothesis suggests that a massive comet or meteorite impact triggered a 1,200-year mini-ice age, known as the Younger Dryas, potentially wiping out numerous human communities across continents. If Sweatman's interpretation is correct, it would overturn traditional views, asserting that Göbekli Tepe was not built by nascent hunter-gatherer tribes on the cusp of civilization. Instead, it was erected by people who had witnessed and survived a civilization-destroying catastrophe, fully understanding its devastation. These very people cleverly encoded the timing of this great disaster into the animal carvings on the limestone pillars, intentionally as a memorial or a warning, and then buried the entire structure under tons of rubble, ensuring this message would endure through time. However, traditional archaeological perspectives suggest these animal carvings hold totemic and mythological significance rather than astronomical symbolism. Furthermore, the chronological correlation Sweatman proposes might simply be a coincidence. Identifying constellations in ancient carvings often relies on interpretive choices, not solely objective determination from the images themselves. And even if there is a correlation with the timing of the YDB event, that alone isn't enough to prove a specific intent. Yet, the deliberate act of backfilling the entire site cannot be adequately explained by any conventional model of religious abandonment. Civilizations typically tend to abandon their temples. Sometimes, they even destroy them. However, there's no record of any culture systematically burying an entire ceremonial complex under tons of meticulously placed rubble, as if sealing a colossal tomb. And astonishingly, geophysical surveys indicate that only a mere 5% of Göbekli Tepe's area has been excavated. Whatever lies hidden in the remaining 95% has patiently waited 12,000 years to be discovered and deciphered. Why was such a magnificent structure buried on a hill in Turkey, where perhaps someone etched a message about the end of an era into stone? Now, let's journey to the majestic Andes of Peru, where another ancient civilization constructed formidable walls that defied the most violent earthquakes this mountainous region has ever experienced. These are the enduring walls of Sacsayhuaman. Let's rewind to 1950, when a devastating earthquake shook the city of Cusco, Peru. Modern structures, despite being solidly built with concrete and stone, could not withstand it. They cracked, crumbled, and collapsed in ruins across the city. However, as the dust settled, an incredible truth emerged. The magnificent walls of Sacsayhuaman, built by the Incas about half a millennium ago without mortar, concrete, or rebar, stood firm, having suffered almost no structural damage. That terrifying seismic event heavily damaged the colonial city that had grown at the foot of Sacsayhuaman. Miraculously, these ancient walls effectively absorbed the seismic energy, allowing them to resiliently withstand the destructive force. This extraordinary resilience was no random stroke of luck. Instead, it is clear evidence of a highly sophisticated engineering principle. Structural engineers, after conducting in-depth studies of these walls in the late 20th century, confirmed that this principle was deliberately and skillfully integrated into the entire design. Even more astonishing is that this design, by the standards of its time, was created by a civilization that possessed no written engineering manuals, no university-trained architects, and no formal mathematical system beyond what could be encoded through knotted cords. Sacsayhuaman is majestically situated on a hillside, approximately 2 kilometers north of central Cusco, at an astonishing altitude of 3,701 meters above sea level. The 3 main terraced walls of this structure are built from colossal, uniquely and irregularly shaped polygonal limestone blocks, forming a robust construction. Notably, the largest of these stones measures an impressive 8.5 meters in height, 5 meters in width, and has an estimated weight of up to 125 tons, a truly colossal figure. An estimated 3,000 stone blocks, each weighing several tons, were used to construct these main walls, demonstrating the extraordinary scale of the project. What's astonishing is that these blocks were perfectly fitted together without the use of mortar, through an incredibly sophisticated 3-dimensional interlocking joint system. Each block was meticulously crafted to make contact with adjacent blocks on multiple irregular surfaces simultaneously, ensuring a strong bond and effective force distribution. The absolute precision of this joining technique was astonishingly documented by the Spanish chronicler Pedro de Cieza de León as early as 1553. Remarkably, his descriptions have been confirmed as entirely accurate and reliable by every modern engineer who has examined and studied these walls. Proof of this sophistication is that a standard sheet of paper cannot be inserted into the joints between the stones. demonstrating their absolute tightness. Professor Jean-Pierre Pratzen from UC Berkeley dedicated many years to diligent experimental archaeological research, tirelessly striving to decipher the unique Inca stoneworking techniques, and he published his groundbreaking findings in 1985. His conclusions indicated that the Inca primarily shaped the stone blocks through a pounding method, continuously using harder stones to strike the surface, thereby removing material in a controlled manner. While this method is capable of creating flat surfaces, it cannot easily produce the complex and sophisticated three-dimensional polygonal interlocking shapes evident at Sacsayhuaman. To achieve this precision, each block had to be meticulously crafted to fit perfectly with adjacent blocks on at least 6 or even more irregular faces simultaneously, an extraordinary engineering challenge. Placing a 125-ton stone block into a perfect gap-free position requires absolute precision. A process of trial and error, lifting and lowering, checking each face, and repeatedly adjusting is simply not feasible. Technically, this would be entirely impossible without predetermined geometric calculations. What allowed these walls to withstand numerous earthquakes that devastated nearby structures? A 1998 in-depth study by structural engineers John Earls and Gary Urton revealed the secret behind their extraordinary resilience. At first glance, the zigzag pattern on the 3 terraced walls might appear to be merely an artistic flourish. However, they are actually a sophisticated engineering system designed to effectively dissipate energy from seismic tremors. These unique polygonal joints allowed each stone block to shift microscopically, thereby evenly distributing horizontal pressure across the wall's surface, rather than concentrating it at vulnerable fixed points. As a result, the entire wall flexes and moves as a unified entity, then automatically returns to its original state perfectly. Today, advanced seismic engineering also achieves controlled structural flexibility through the design of meticulously calculated joints. What's astonishing is that the Inca achieved similar results, seemingly without any recorded formulas or calculated blueprints. In the 16th century, when Spanish colonial authorities attempted to dismantle parts of Sacsayhuaman to build the Cuzco Cathedral, they inadvertently provided compelling proof of the complexity and challenge of this construction. They were only able to successfully remove smaller blocks for reuse. However, the colossal stones weighing up to 20 tons remained completely immovable, forcing them to leave them in place. In the 1500s, no Spanish equipment was capable of moving those massive stone blocks. And to this day, similar blocks still stand firm in their original positions, defying time. The orthodox explanation, within its framework, remains entirely logical and coherent. The Inca implemented the mita system, an efficient form of labor tax, which allowed them to mobilize tens of thousands of workers each year to carry out the empire's large-scale projects. Andean builders meticulously accumulated centuries of experience and expertise in the art of polygonal stonework. This extraordinary earthquake resistance is considered the result of practical experimentation and accumulated experience over generations of builders in one of the most seismically active regions on the planet. However, a major question remains unanswered. How could they achieve such complex three-dimensional joint geometry without any recorded prior calculation methods? Remarkably, similar eye-shaped metal clamps, molten into pre-cut stone grooves, appear not only at Pumapunku, but also at Sacsayhuaman. This becomes even more perplexing when we find similar, independent structures separated by the Atlantic Ocean appearing elsewhere. Specifically, at ancient sites in Egypt and Lebanon, we also find similar traces related to 3 entirely distinct civilizations with no confirmed connections whatsoever. An astonishing commonality is that they all possessed a specialized, identical joining technique. While the common explanation is parallel independent invention, some researchers question this incredibly specific technical coincidence. They wonder if the theory of parallel invention is the most logical and optimal explanation, or merely a convenient and easily accepted justification. Leaving behind the earthquake-resistant walls of Peru, our journey continues to the mysterious Indus Valley. Here, we will explore an ancient city, forgotten for 4,000 years, which created a marvel that no civilization, either before or after, dared to attempt on a similar scale. This was an advanced public sanitation system, serving all citizens without distinction of class or being reserved solely for the elite. What's remarkable is that Mohenjo Daro's urban sanitation system was designed to serve all citizens, without any preference or limitation for any aristocratic class. Now, close your eyes and imagine London in 1850. Despite being Europe's largest city, the center of power for a mighty empire controlling a quarter of the globe, raw sewage ironically still overflowed and flooded its streets. The River Thames at that time was nothing more than a giant open sewer, and as a result, cholera claimed the lives of tens of thousands of innocent citizens. It took another 65 years until 1865 for the city to finally begin constructing a truly effective underground drainage system. It was only then that the underground sewer network, designed and built by engineer Joseph Bazalgette, truly became effective, helping to control and significantly reduce the number of deaths. Now, open your eyes and join us as we explore an ancient city built 4,600 years ago, deep in the Indus Valley, in what is now Pakistan. What's astonishing is that every house here was equipped with a private toilet. Wastewater from each toilet was channeled through a covered brick drain, and each of these drains was seamlessly connected to a complex urban sewer network, hidden beneath the streets. Notably, this network was also equipped with periodic inspection hatches, allowing for easy clearing in case of blockages. And this is the legendary Mohenjo Daro. The disparity between the great achievements it attained and the historical period in which they emerged is one of the most astonishing, yet rarely discussed facts. Remarkably, throughout the long history of human civilization, Mohenjo Daro remained completely forgotten, unknown to the modern world until 1922. That was when archaeologist R.D. Banerjee officially identified the site, as part of a survey directed by John Marshall from the Archaeological Survey of India. Systematic excavations revealed an astonishing truth. This was not a rudimentary settlement, but a meticulously planned city with a grid-patterned street network. With an estimated population ranging from 35,000 to 40,000 residents, the city was constructed from uniform fired bricks, featuring two entirely separate drainage systems. One dedicated pipeline for domestic wastewater and another distinct system for solid waste, clearly demonstrating the Indus civilization engineers' profound understanding of sanitation principles. This principle of separating waste streams was a concept that Western public health would not officially recognize and implement until the 19th century. The standardization in brick production is a remarkable highlight, as fired bricks found across all Indus Valley civilization sites, spanning an area of approximately 1.5 million square kilometers, maintained consistent dimensions. From present-day Afghanistan to Gujarat, they consistently maintained a standard size ratio of 1 to 2 to 4 for height, width, and length, with the most common dimensions being around 7 by 14 by 28 centimeters. This astonishing level of standardization, spread across a civilization larger than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined, indicates a tightly controlled production system and an incredibly sophisticated organized distribution network. Clearly, some authority made decisions regarding these dimensional specifications. And astonishingly, every community across the 1.5 million square kilometer area adhered to and implemented them. The Great Bath at Mohenjo Daro, discovered by archaeologist John Marshall in 1926, boasts impressive dimensions: 12 meters long, 7 meters wide, and 2.4 meters deep. This structure was solidly built from fired bricks, with the brick courses bonded by gypsum mortar, then coated with a layer of bitumen for waterproofing, and further reinforced with a second layer of bricks. This multi-layered waterproofing system was so sophisticated that Marshall himself had to admit its structural ingenuity was entirely comparable to deliberately constructed Roman public baths, even though these Roman structures emerged 2,000 years later. Over 700 wells were discovered at Mohenjo Daro, equating to approximately 1 well for every 50 residents. This per capita access to water was an achievement that European cities would not match until the industrial age. The common and widely accepted explanation for all these achievements is often quite simple and defensible. The Indus Valley civilization is seen as a highly sophisticated Bronze Age urban culture that naturally developed its techniques based on pre-existing Neolithic water management traditions in the region. The particular emphasis on sanitation could be a manifestation of cultural values related to ritual purity, values that were later documented in Vedic religious texts. Given appropriate population density, organizational capacity, and cultural impetus, the construction of advanced sanitary infrastructure could certainly be achieved through the accumulation of craft expertise over generations. However, this explanation overlooks a crucial point. Every other state-level society in the Bronze Age with comparable levels of sophistication, from Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Minoans to the Shang dynasty, all focused on building magnificent, opulent architectural works exclusively for the elite, while neglecting their ordinary citizens. They had to fend for themselves with their waste problems by any means they could find. What's astonishing is that in Mohenjo Daro, advanced sanitation systems were provided to every household, not just limited to palaces or sacred temples, but truly for all citizens, a testament to equality. This was not merely a testament to their superior engineering capabilities. Instead, it reflected a profound civic ideology that prioritized the basic rights of ordinary people in society. An unprecedented condition, entirely unique in the entire ancient world. In fact, a similar perspective was not systematically presented in Western political thought until the Enlightenment, millennia later. Furthermore, another mysterious aspect is the script. The Indus Valley civilization left behind approximately 4,000 carved seals, bearing a writing system that remains largely undeciphered to this day, challenging scientists. Although global linguists have dedicated decades to research, a groundbreaking statistical analysis in 2009 by Rajesh Rao from the University of Washington, published in the prestigious journal Science, confirmed that this script possesses the complex mathematical properties of a true structured language, refuting the hypothesis of a mere labeling system. If this script cannot be deciphered, we will forever be unable to understand how the city was governed, who regulated the proportions of building bricks, who engineered the complex drainage system, and especially why they built such structures for all citizens. A great mystery. All answers to these questions are hidden within those 4,000 mysterious seals, written in a language that no one alive in this world can read. A sealed treasure trove of knowledge. Leaving behind the city built for the benefit of ordinary people, we will now journey to an ancient temple in Egypt, where priests carved something onto the walls that has quietly sparked debate among Egyptologists and electrical engineers for the past 50 years. A mystery challenging modern science. Deep within the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, 60 kilometers north of Luxor, lie the famous Dendera reliefs, situated within a series of mysterious underground crypts where light can barely reach. This area is not part of the standard tour route, making it even more unique and difficult to access. Inside, the low ceilings create a cramped feeling, and dry air pervades the space. And on the limestone walls, exquisitely carved around 50 BCE during the Ptolemaic period, is a series of images that have sparked more controversy per square centimeter than any other ancient carving in Egypt, a challenge to traditional understanding. In the most thoroughly analyzed reliefs, we can observe large, elongated objects shaped like light bulbs at one end, gradually tapering towards a solid base structure, prompting much speculation. Inside each of these light bulbs, a serpent winds along the entire length of the object, its head touching the narrow part at a specific point, creating a highly suggestive image. The base from which each of these objects appears to protrude is shaped like a jed pillar, an ancient Egyptian symbol associated with the god Osiris and eternal stability, carrying profound meaning about permanence. Human figures are depicted standing beside and beneath the objects, in postures that can be interpreted as either worshipping or operating them, entirely depending on the interpretive lens applied by the viewer, creating a challenging ambiguity. According to the traditional interpretation of Egyptologists, which has been consistently maintained and strongly argued over decades, forming a solid foundation, they propose that these elongated shapes represent lotus buds, or cosmic eggs, carrying deep symbolic meaning in ancient Egyptian culture. The serpent creature hidden inside is Nehebkau, an ancient serpent deity, symbolizing divine power and eternal protection. The Djed pillar, a standard religious symbol, has been widely used for centuries. Overall, this relief depicts a profound mythological scene, testifying to the birth of divine creative energy from primordial times. In his 1999 study on Egyptian esoteric traditions, Egyptologist Eric Hornung acknowledged the electrical interpretation as the most popular alternative hypothesis, but he also rejected it as unnecessary. Against the backdrop of firmly established mythological terminology, this divergent interpretation was initiated by Austrian electrical engineer Walter Garn in the 1960s. While observing the reliefs at Dendera, Garn discovered an entirely novel aspect. He noticed the geometric shape of a Crookes tube, a vacuum glass tube containing electrodes inside, where an electric current activates incandescent discharge. This device was the direct precursor to the electric light bulb we use today. According to Garn's interpretation, the elongated bulb-like shape represented the glass envelope, while the serpent was the glowing filament. The Djed pillar, in this view, was considered an insulator, similar to those used in high-voltage equipment. He even succeeded in constructing a functional vacuum tube based on the geometry of the Dendera reliefs as a blueprint. Records indicate that he did indeed produce a faint electric glow. However, a crucial physical detail that neither interpretation has fully explained is the actual condition of the crypts. These enclosed underground spaces, in ancient times, were used for all activities requiring human presence and, naturally, light. Every enclosed space from antiquity where torches or oil lamps were lit, from burial chambers in the Valley of the Kings to service corridors in Roman temples, clearly shows traces of soot on the ceilings and upper walls. Yet, the crypts at Dendera are consistently noted as being entirely free of soot. If light were produced by oil lamps or torches, physical evidence of this would undoubtedly be present. However, there are no such traces whatsoever. The Temple of Dendera, where these reliefs were created, dates to the Ptolemaic period. In the vibrant intellectual environment of Alexandria, where scholars simultaneously investigated static electricity, pneumatics, and steam power, Hero of Alexandria created programmable mechanical theaters. In that era, the great intellectual complex of the Library and Museum of Alexandria under the Ptolemies rose as the most elite scientific knowledge hub of the entire ancient world. A fascinating hypothesis suggests that Alexandrian scholar-priests pioneered the practical application of electrical or electrochemical phenomena for specific religious rituals, and cleverly encoded this technology through religious symbolism to safeguard technological secrets, which is entirely plausible and worth considering. However, the core issue is that this hypothesis completely lacks official records for verification. Notably, many researchers have highlighted the enigmatic inscriptions accompanying the Dendera crypt reliefs, which feature unique terms appearing only once in the entire surviving corpus of Egyptian hieroglyphic heritage. These are hapax legomena, unique words whose meaning cannot be inferred from any other context within the ancient textual corpus. Assuming the depicted scenes are conventional religious works, then, naturally, the language used to describe them should conform to established religious linguistic norms. However, the presence of these unique, hard-to-decipher terms on these particular reliefs suggests that these scenes might be describing a concept or technology requiring specialized vocabulary that does not appear in any other religious text. Perhaps we will never fully uncover the mystery behind the light that illuminated the ancient Dendera crypts. However, one thing is certain: this issue remains open, challenging all satisfactory explanations. Leaving behind the ancient Egyptian temples, where the most mysterious chambers remain the focus of endless debates about their true meaning, our journey continues north and west into the distant frontier provinces of the Roman Empire. Here, over 100 specimens of an exquisitely crafted and mysterious bronze object have been discovered. These objects are spread across 11 modern countries, yet, strangely, no Roman scholar or writer ever documented their purpose. The Roman dodecahedron. The Roman Empire was renowned for its incredible meticulousness in documenting everything, from tax revenues by province, detailed pay for each soldier, grain yields from North African farms, architectural specifications for aqueduct systems, to lists of sailors' names on a grain ship. Pliny the Elder painstakingly compiled a massive encyclopedia of natural history, spanning 37 volumes. Vitruvius also left behind 10 in-depth books on architecture and engineering, demonstrating the intellectual development of the time. However, it is perplexing that this small, dodecahedron-shaped bronze object, unearthed at over 100 sites across Roman Gaul, Germania, and Britannia, with its exquisite craftsmanship and apparent value, is completely absent from any surviving Roman texts. Not a single name, no detailed description, and no legal regulation regarding its use has ever been found. There are no inventory records, no illustrations on mosaics or frescoes, and no descriptions on funerary reliefs or merchants' shop signs. A civilization, considered the most literate and administratively sophisticated in all of ancient history, appears to have encountered this object daily without leaving any trace. It is astonishing to realize that even before this mysterious object itself, the silence surrounding it is the first enigma, and the object itself is a challenging second mystery. Each of these dodecahedra possesses 12 perfect pentagonal faces, each pierced by a circular hole, with significantly varying diameters, ranging from less than 1 centimeter to over 4 centimeters. Notably, at each of the 20 vertices, where 3 planes intricately intersect, a small, solid sphere is firmly attached. Although no 2 dodecahedra discovered to date are perfectly identical in size, hole arrangement, or overall form, they all adhere to a basic 12-sided geometric structure with spherical corners. The superior craftsmanship of these artifacts, verified through in-depth analysis at the Rheinisches Landesmuseum Trier, attests to an extremely complex, multi-stage, lost wax bronze casting process, requiring post-casting finishing with absolute precision. With metalworking sophistication comparable to the finest Roman decorative bronzes, these were clearly not ordinary or low-value items. These artifacts were crafted by skilled artisans at considerable expense, produced in large quantities, and widely distributed across the northern frontier provinces of the Roman Empire. The discovery of wax residue inside some specimens gave rise to one of the earliest and most popular theories, that they might be candle holders. However, the varying diameters of the holes on the same object are inconsistent with the simple function of a candle holder. Creating a candle holder with this level of geometric complexity would be akin to devising an elaborate 12-sided solution for a problem that a simple flat plate could perfectly solve. Consequently, the candle holder hypothesis has gradually lost widespread support, leaving a significant void in the search for a convincing explanation. In 2020, a groundbreaking hypothesis was put forth by Dutch researcher G.M.C. Wegmans, suggesting that these dodecahedra were, in fact, specialized range-finding instruments for Roman artillery. According to this, by sighting through 2 holes of a specific diameter from a known distance, the user could accurately calculate the range to a target. To bolster his argument, Wegmans personally constructed working replicas and successfully demonstrated this principle in practice. In this interpretation, the variation in hole diameters becomes a crucial factor, allowing the instrument to be flexibly calibrated to suit different types of ammunition or diverse tactical range requirements. Notably, this hypothesis aligns perfectly with the broader military context of the Roman Empire. Another independent yet equally intriguing hypothesis focuses on the geographical distribution of artifacts found predominantly in border regions. Developed through experimental archaeology by a team of Dutch researchers, this hypothesis proposes a unique idea, that the dodecahedra were knitting gauges. According to this hypothesis, they were used to create finger tubes of standard diameters, facilitating the production of multi-fingered military gloves, which are meticulously documented in the text Roman Frontier Equipment. And these varied-sized holes would have been used to calibrate for different finger widths, ensuring a perfect fit. Remarkably, this method has opened the door to successfully recreating ancient Roman gloves, fully usable, just like the originals. It's noteworthy that this theory perfectly matches both the distribution pattern in border regions and the presence of wax residue, an indispensable component in the process of finishing wool. Undeniably, the geographical distribution pattern is one of the key pieces of evidence, offering the most profound insights. While hypotheses regarding their purpose remain open, one thing is certain. The majority of these mysterious dodecahedra have been unearthed in the northern frontier provinces of the Roman Empire. These areas today comprise the territories of modern nations such as France, Belgium, Switzerland, Germany, the Netherlands, and Britain. However, a stark contrast is their near-complete absence in Italy, Greece, Spain, North Africa, or the territories of the Eastern Empire. Although the true function of these artifacts remains a mystery, they clearly symbolize either the military culture of the northern border regions or the indigenous Gallo-Germanic communities who integrated and adopted Roman material culture in these provinces. And whatever their function, it seems their users never felt the need to document them. This is because all knowledge about them was preserved entirely within a specific community of practice, where written records were never accessible. And when that community dissolved, all that valuable knowledge was permanently lost to oblivion. The artifacts stubbornly persist underground, but sadly, the explanation for their existence has completely vanished. An intriguing hypothesis proposed by some researchers suggests a close connection to the mysterious rituals of the Mithraic cult. This cult was particularly prevalent in military circles in border regions, from the 2nd to the 4th centuries AD. This enigmatic cult was a distinctive initiatory religion where internal doctrines were never recorded by its own members. Therefore, all information about them is known only through hostile descriptions from external sources. The cosmology of this cult was essentially a branch of astronomy, tightly structured around the 12 zodiac signs and the complex movements of celestial bodies. A 12-sided object, imbued with deep astronomical symbolic potential, yet used exclusively within a secret military religious community. Naturally, such an artifact would never appear in any public administrative records from outside. In other words, it was deliberately designed to be completely beyond the reach and attention of the Roman bureaucracy. Astonishingly, over 100 of these artifacts are now on display and preserved in museum collections worldwide. Yet, the greatest mystery remains. We still cannot precisely explain their true nature and purpose. Leaving aside the unsolved mysteries of these Roman objects, we will return to Egypt one last time. Our destination is a discreet tomb near Saqqara, where in 1898, a small, intricately carved wooden bird was carefully removed. For 71 long years, this artifact lay dormant in a storage box, forgotten. It wasn't until a truly knowledgeable expert thoroughly examined it that an astonishing truth was revealed. It possessed the ability to fly. The story of the Saqqara bird begins in 1898. At the ancient necropolis of Saqqara, 30 kilometers south of Cairo, archaeologists excavated a tomb belonging to a priestly family. Amidst countless familiar sacrificial animal statues, they stumbled upon a small, exquisitely carved wooden bird, hidden within the collection. With impressive dimensions, the object measured 6 centimeters in height, 14 centimeters in length, and had a wingspan of 18 centimeters. Officially recorded with registration number 6347, it was classified as a bird-shaped object and placed in a storage box at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. By 1969, the artifact had lain dormant there for 71 years. It was in this context that a distinguished Egyptologist named Khalil Masiha was diligently organizing a collection of aircraft models at that very museum, when suddenly, a mysterious object in a storage box caught his particular attention. He carefully picked up the bird-shaped object and turned it over, examining it thoroughly in his palm. Immediately, he noticed something unusual about its wings. All bird carvings in the ancient Egyptian collection, from exquisitely stylized ibises to majestic sacred falcons, or wax-covered flying birds symbolizing human souls, all featured a horizontally shaped tail feather section, a natural biological characteristic of birds. However, this object had a vertical tail fin, extending straight up from the main body, much like the tail fin of an arrow, or more precisely, a glider. It's an obvious fact that no bird in nature possesses such a vertical tail fin. Meanwhile, this structure is characteristic of aircraft. Faced with this groundbreaking discovery, Messiha immediately brought the object to the attention of Egyptian aviation authorities and subsequently published his groundbreaking findings before the Egyptian Youth Science Association in 1971. Subsequent aerodynamic analyses fully confirmed his initial suspicions. The wings of the Saqqara bird model were not designed merely for decoration. They featured a flat underside and a curved upper surface, a typical airfoil cross-section, with a functional principle entirely analogous to the wing profile of a modern light aircraft. This particular shape structure, commonly known as the equivalent Clark Y airfoil, serves to generate lift by creating lower air pressure on the upper surface of the wing, compared to the lower surface, as the airflow moves across it. A purely decorative bird sculpture would have no aesthetic reason to require a cross-section with such a specific shape. An artisan carving a symbolic falcon for religious purposes would merely reproduce the image of a pair of wings, not a truly functional component. The bird's body structure is scientifically streamlined from chest to tail, forming an ideal shape to minimize aerodynamic drag. The vertical tail fin, also known as the vertical stabilizer, plays a crucial role in maintaining vertical axis stability, effectively controlling lateral movements during flight. This is a core function commonly seen in modern aircraft designs, and precisely why natural birds do not possess this structure. Instead, they utilize their tail feathers to flexibly adjust and control altitude. However, it is noteworthy that the Saqqara bird does not possess a tail feather structure typical of other birds. Instead, it is equipped with a vertical stabilizer, a characteristic design feature of fixed-wing aircraft. Subsequently, aeronautical engineer Simon Sanderson created a replica of the object, with a small but significant improvement. He added a horizontal tail stabilizer. This is the component that researcher Messiha believes was missing from the original artifact. Test results showed that this replica demonstrated astonishingly stable flight capabilities, maintaining its trajectory over a distance proportional to the size ratio of the original object. Computational fluid dynamics, CFD analyses of the wing shape, performed at airspeeds easily achievable by simply throwing the object, demonstrated that the wing generates sufficient lift to support its estimated weight. More remarkably, its lift-to-drag ratio is comparable to modern slow-flying aircraft, a clear testament to its superior aerodynamic efficiency. The object was crafted from sycamore fig wood, a common and practical wood often used by ancient Egyptians for highly functional items, such as boat parts or tool handles. This contrasts sharply with the rare woods typically reserved for decorative sculptures or ceremonial objects. The tomb of Padi Emin, where this mysterious object was discovered, is closely linked to a prestigious priestly family who played a significant role in the Alexandrian intellectual network. This was the elite intellectual class, privileged to access and study the advanced scientific achievements of Egypt during the Ptolemaic period. According to the most common interpretation, the Saqqara bird is believed to be a decorative sculpture or a cultic object, possibly symbolizing the Ba soul. Or it could be an image of the sacred Bennu bird, and any aerodynamic properties it possesses are merely coincidental. It is argued that a skilled woodcarver, in creating a streamlined bird shape, could inadvertently achieve an aerodynamically efficient structure without any specialized knowledge in the field. As for the vertical tail fin, it could simply be a stylized tail element or a broken and misidentified part of a horizontal tail. Another possibility is that it represents a unique artistic convention not evident in other surviving artifacts, primarily because most wooden objects from this period have not survived to the present day. However, to accept this common explanation, we must believe that three independent coincidences occurred simultaneously in an incredibly unlikely manner. It was a decorative carver who accidentally created a perfectly functional airfoil cross-section, who inadvertently added a vertical stabilizer with no precedent in thousands of surviving Egyptian bird artworks, and who also, coincidentally, crafted a streamlined fuselage optimized for reducing aerodynamic drag. In the field of engineering, when three independent factors converge simultaneously to create a clearly functional design, we don't call it a coincidence. The precise term to describe this phenomenon is intent, or purpose. Therefore, some researchers have hypothesized that the Saqqara bird is actually a scale model, a type of working prototype that engineers typically build to test and verify design ratios before proceeding with full-scale production. Imagine if during the Ptolemaic era, amidst the vibrant intellectual environment of Alexandria, an individual had unlocked a practical understanding of aerodynamic lift through observation and experimentation. Then surely, the Saqqara bird would be the pioneering physical artifact they created. A full-sized version, if it ever truly existed, would surely have been crafted from materials unable to withstand the ravages of time. What remains today is merely a test model, discovered inside an ancient tomb. After patiently waiting, it took 71 years for someone with enough vision and knowledge to recognize its true significance to emerge. Before that, this bird artifact lay dormant for 2,200 years. And it is one of 10 other mysterious artifacts unearthed from deep within the earth, the ocean floor, or hidden within the walls of ancient temples. When we place these artifacts side by side, an astonishing picture emerges, including a sophisticated gear computer from Greece and stone blocks cut with extraordinary precision from Bolivia. The existence of advanced nanotechnology in Roman glass. The challenging non-rusting iron pillar from India. An intricately carved comet monument on stone in Turkey. Solid walls with incredible earthquake resistance in Peru. A complex citywide drainage system in Pakistan. And possibly mysterious electrical schematics found in Egypt, a tool of unknown origin, unearthed from the Roman frontier. And finally, an impressive aerodynamic model from an Egyptian tomb. From these artifacts, a remarkable pattern begins to emerge. While each individual mainstream explanation may seem plausible when considered in isolation, they become perplexing and unconvincing when placed within the overall context of all the artifacts. From a traditional perspective, each of these artifacts is seen as the pinnacle of a local tradition, forged from centuries of accumulated empirical experience. It is a combination of master craftsmen, patient iteration, persistent labor, and convergent problem-solving. Human ingenuity and craftsmanship, when given enough time and driven by necessity, can absolutely achieve extraordinary feats, appearing independently in various regions across the globe. This is a coherent line of reasoning, reinforced by countless authentic pieces of evidence, and perhaps it accurately reflects the nature of many issues. However, what is remarkable about all 10 of these artifacts is not just their superior sophistication. Rather, it's a cycle, a peak of sophistication followed by a sudden disappearance without a trace. The Antikythera tradition vanished in just 14 short years. Sophisticated Roman nanotechnology disappeared along with the skilled artisans who created it. The unique iron-smelting formula of the Gupta dynasty was never recorded in writing. The administrative knowledge of Mohenjo Daro faded into oblivion, along with a writing system that remains an undeciphered mystery. Roman dodecahedra lost their name and function within a single generation. The Saqqara bird lay dormant in a box for 71 years before its true value was recognized. In all these cases, valuable knowledge was not inherited or passed down. It completely vanished from the course of history. It seems these traditions were abruptly severed, rather than gradually fading over time. The emergence of sophisticated, functional knowledge, only to abruptly disappear without leaving any successors or records, challenges the standard linear model of human progress, a phenomenon that model struggles to explain. According to the standard model, progress typically occurs through gradual accumulation. It cannot vanish invisibly, leaving no trace. Yet these 10 artifacts are precisely the remaining traces, evidence of the disappearance of a much greater civilization, or knowledge. Perhaps this is the most authentic perspective we need to confront. We have unconsciously assumed that we are the most sophisticated and developed version of humanity ever to exist on Earth. These relics demonstrate that this hypothesis deserves far deeper analysis than commonly perceived. It's not that they offer a novel alternative. In fact, they don't. Rather, they directly prove that the difference between the capabilities of ancient peoples and what we assume they knew is sometimes far smaller than what historical records often suggest. Most museum visitors typically glance, read the exhibit cards, and accept the unspoken gap between the artifact and the explanations provided. But you are different. You have patiently followed all 10 of these artifacts. This is truly not a common act. That shows you are well aware that the gap between what we can scientifically prove and what we actually observe with our own eyes is precisely where true historical secrets lie. Our channel was created precisely to explore that mysterious gap. We are not here to impose any conclusions on you. Instead, it's for those souls who constantly ponder the question, why? Hit the subscribe button and join us on this journey of discovery. Next, visit the comment section and do one simple thing. Choose a single artifact from what you've just seen that you find most difficult to refute based on conventional explanations. Just one artifact and present your own argument. Now it's your turn to speak. 10 artifacts, 10 mysterious silences where clear explanations should be. We often tell ourselves that knowledge only moves in one direction, constantly expanding, continuously breaking all limits. They created everything from a void. Yet, these ancient creations seem to tell an older, more mysterious story. This demonstrates that knowledge can be entirely lost, to the point where, even centuries later, we are still marveling at its creations and mistakenly believe them to be unsolvable mysteries. The true mystery does not lie in the creations themselves. Instead, it always lies in the erosion of memory. And somewhere between the magnificent structures these civilizations created and our efforts to decipher the methods by which they built them, there exists a version of human history that to this day we have yet to unveil. To help the archive continue delving deeper into these mysteries, please subscribe to the channel.